Change is hard, not because you're doing it wrong, but because it asks something of you. Welcome to Change is Hard, a podcast from the Leadership Lab. I'm Audrey Blair, and this is a space for leaders who are learning how to sit with uncertainty, make decisions without rushing, and grow without losing themselves in the process. We'll talk about the moments that stretch you, the conversations you keep avoiding, and the quiet shifts that change everything. No noise, no pressure, just honest conversations about becoming the kind of leader and human you actually want to be. Let's get into it. I have been thinking about the kinds of questions that leaders are asking AI right now. And to be clear, I don't have access to private conversations, of course, and that's good, but I certainly have enough going on. But I did ask a few AIs, what are some of the top questions that leaders are asking them? And instead of coming up with answers specifically around that, I actually just pulled some more recent research. I listen, of course, to what my clients are telling me and then pay attention to what some of the patterns are that's happening inside of organizations. And there are some patterns that are coming up. Now, I think we know that the questions have changed. At the beginning or a few years ago, a lot of people were asking, what is AI? What is generative AI? What can it do? Should we allow our employees to use it? And I think we're past that stage now because a lot of organizations are actually asking their employees to use it. They're encouraging them to get certified. In some cases, they are making it a part of their growth plan that they use and learn and know how to use AI. I was recently doing a workshop with an organization, and it was a full day workshop. I was doing about half of the day, but before me, the presentation was about the AI that that organization used and how to use it, and they were getting questions answered around that. So it is very much becoming a part of the core within the organization. So leaders aren't just asking what AI can do, they're also asking about what will it do to organizations, maybe even to the business model, to their people, in some cases to them personally. I think there was a study done by the Boston Consulting Group where half of the CEOs that were surveyed said that their own job stability depended on them getting their AI strategy right. So what is a right AI strategy? Who knows? And it obviously depends on the organization itself. But that absolutely changes the energy of the conversation. And it's no longer an experiment. We're in it. People are spending money, reputations are involved, jobs are involved. We're seeing conversations and we're seeing articles about jobs in AI. And leaders are being expected to make decisions about this technology that is constantly changing, and they're being asked to make decisions about something that's consistently changing. It's interesting. I was having a conversation recently with a team. I'm going to go and do a workshop with a leadership team, and I was meeting with the senior leaders. And I talked about how we used to treat change as a project. Hey, this is a change that we're going through. That is no longer the case. We have to learn how to make change the circumstance in which we live, because it's not going away. And for some of you, I'm sure you remember, and I don't know if this phrase is used as much now as it used to be, but the phrase is the only constant is change. I've been hearing that message for 20 years, but now I am actually literally feeling that more and more. And I think many of you are feeling that as well. So today I just want to take a look at some of the 5 biggest questions that surfaced when I was researching around what are people asking about AI from a leadership perspective and a leadership lens. I'll give some ideas or my thoughts about these things. And I know that there's more than 5. I know that there are a lot more, but these are probably things that you're thinking about, and you're not alone in asking these questions. They are things that you probably should be thinking about, and maybe I can provide some insights on them, or, in the way I like to do it, what's the question underneath the question as well. So let's take a look at it. Let's see what was generated. So the first question that came up was, are we moving fast enough? And this can generate and create a bunch of anxiety because not only are you looking at competitors and headlines and, of course, news and trying to understand new tools that are out there and what's shaping a lot of the industries that's out there, so many people are announcing their AI strategy, what they're doing with it. Who doesn't have an AI pilot? Who doesn't have an AI agent right now? And many leaders are wondering, are we behind? Now, this is an age old question, trying to keep up with the Joneses. What are they doing? And are we doing the same thing? But are other organizations learning something maybe that you think that you're not? And the pressure might be maybe we're moving too slowly, or you might be thinking, oh no, we rushed into that thing before we really understood what we were going to be doing with it. So there is a little bit of that fear of being left behind that can create a lot of activity, but activity and progress are not the same thing. We know that busyness and productivity are not the same thing. And I think it's important to understand that buying the tool isn't the transformation. Getting the thing in house is not the thing that we should be focusing on. But sometimes we have to figure out, is it actually producing something? Are we deliberately learning from it? Of course, speed matters, but is this motion only creating information? What are you actually testing? What are you discovering? What is actually changing based on what you've learned? So a leader does have to move more quickly these days and make very fast decisions, but you don't want to lose yourself in just being super quick. So we have to create room for people to actually try things and learn things. And the objective is to become more capable. It's not about having the appearance of just simply having AI. What are the capabilities that we're building because of AI? So if you're only focusing on speed, that's probably not the right thing to be focusing on. Question number 2, we've invested in AI. Where is the return? Are we getting a return on that investment? And this one was interesting because a lot of people are reporting so far that the majority of organizations are not producing both increased revenue and reduced costs. Now, that's very interesting because I do think that for some organizations, they've had AI in the building long enough where they can start looking at, what is it that's producing? It's no longer the question about who has access and how many people have access, but what are we actually getting out of this? And we have to be careful what we're actually measuring because one of the biggest things around AI is that it saves time. Great. I agree that it can save time. But what is actually happening to that time? So, as an example, if AI saves someone 5 hours per week because now they're getting the first draft of an email done, or a presentation is getting created, or at least a draft of a presentation is getting created, or for whatever reason you're using AI for. But what's happening with those 5 hours that are saved? And I think a lot of what's happening is that there's more email and more meetings and more low value work. That's actually not what we want. We want organizations to build and create meaningful capacity. So thinking about, where do you want that time to be reinvested? And as the leader, this is something you definitely need to make sure that you understand, that capacity doesn't automatically reinvest itself. So you got to think about, where does it go? If AI is handling that, the first draft, what do you want them to do with the time that remains? So you have to be explicit, depending on the role, of course, and what you're actually measuring. But should they be focusing on building stronger client relationships? Should they be focused on building more relationships internally? My big thing is, how much time are you saving and then putting into thinking more strategically and being more creative? As leaders, are you using that time to develop someone or develop more people on your team? Are you able to evaluate and see patterns more quickly and easily? So these are things you have to explicitly call out and think about. How are we reinvesting that time that's being saved? Or are we just kicking back and just sending out more emails and having more meetings? Because at the end of the day, and at some point, you would think that there should be less meetings, right? I don't know. I haven't quite seen that happen yet. As a leader, though, are your decisions or the quality of your decisions, are they improving? Can you make decisions more quickly? So, as you think about where are we getting that return on the investment, if it's actually driving efficiency and productivity, where are we seeing that efficiency and that productivity show up? Because adoption is not the goal. The goal is producing better work. And if you can't identify what's becoming better, then you don't have a return yet. And that's something you got to think about when you're leveraging this. What are the metrics that we are measuring? It can't just be, have we adopted it? And fair, I spent 25 years in IT, and we used to measure that a lot, particularly when you're moving from one tool to another. It's what's the adoption rate? How many people have access? How many people are using it? Now we need to take that a step further. We probably needed to take it further then too, but definitely a step further in thinking about what is it saving and where are we reinvesting that time. So getting beyond just the numbers of who's using it, but what return are we getting? Now, the third question is, and this one's, I think, an important one. Who is accountable when AI gets it wrong? This becomes more important because now we're starting to see AI move away from giving information to taking action. Your AI tool drafting an email is one thing. You still have to read the draft. You still have to make edits. You still have to go, this doesn't sound like me, and make it sound like you. But when you have an AI agent that communicates with the customer, that changes a record, that maybe recommends a candidate or approves a series of transactions, that becomes something else entirely. So the moment that the system begins doing rather than just suggesting, that's where accountability gets blurry. So who owns that outcome? Who is it? That's a question that you and your team and having some governance around is very important. Is it the technology team? Is it the IT team? They get blamed for so much. Listen, I feel you. I get it. Maybe it's the vendor that you hired to come in or the consultant. Is it the employee who used it? Does it go all the way to the top, to the executive who approved it? I'll give you a shortcut to this answer. It is not AI. AI cannot accept responsibility for doing something wrong. It can't stand in front of your customer, can't explain their reasons for doing it, and no one is going to accept that. I know a lot of people saying, I don't know, it just did it. That cannot be the reason. It still has to belong to someone. You can't delegate accountability for the task. Someone has to be held accountable for it. So you still need to have people who know the system and know what it's supposed to do and what it's not supposed to do. You still need to have people who understand and know what data it's using. You still need to have some areas where there's a human review that's required before it gives out all these answers or changes records. And there needs to be some authority to stop the process. So who then owns it? Brainstorming with AI is one thing. It's a whole nother thing when it starts making life decisions for people. And that's where it gets really wild. And the bigger the consequence or the higher the consequence, the more important it is for that human judgment to still be present when it comes to the kinds of things that you're asking your AI to do. Because leadership can't hide behind the technology. You can't. It can't just be, well, I don't know, it just did its thing. Having something around and governance around the ownership when things go wrong is going to be a very important conversation that you as leaders need to have more and more. Question number 4, how do I prepare my people for AI without losing them? This is a big one because we know that we know that employees are really wondering not just how to use the technology, but they're also wondering, what it means about their value, what it means about their job, what it means about them. Are they simply replacing themselves with AI? And that is a big question. And the experience that I brought in, how much does that matter? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I actually addressed this in the last episode where I talked about you can't outknow AI. And I talked about 10 different skills or capabilities that AI cannot replace, and where you might be thinking or where you need to now get your value from beyond just knowing something. So, yes, you want to learn how to leverage it and use it, but it can't be just because I know more, that's where my value is coming from. You've got to think about and figure out, what more do I bring to the table? When I walk into the room, am I challenging? Do I bring people together? Am I the one that can ask the great questions in order to get us to someplace more quickly? So, it's not so much that you don't need to know anything anymore. Of course not. But we need to lean more on those human-centric or human-centered values and the ability that AI just simply cannot replace. Roles are gonna change, some expectations are gonna change, and we don't know where all these things are going, but as we figure some of this out and we gain some clarity, that's when we're gonna be able to produce some of the trust. And I think from a leadership perspective, you may not have all the answers. You may not be able to clearly and honestly tell someone 6 months from now or a year from now, 2 years from now that you'll still be in this role, and I think that's fair. But even simply saying that and telling them, "Listen, I don't know what's happening in the future, but I can tell you over the next several months or the next few weeks, this is what we're doing, this is what we're focused on, and this is how that's gonna work." 'Cause even bad news is better than no news, because now I have a story, I know where we're headed, I know what we're thinking, and that it builds that trust for the employees. So, I think you can ask your employees from a leadership perspective, ask them about the work that consumed their time that doesn't necessarily require their best thinking. Maybe AI can do that so that you can use their brains for something else. What are the things that they are repeating that adds very little value? That's something that you can maybe offset with something else. And maybe more importantly, where can AI support them? So this is something that rather than them feeling like I have to do it all myself, here are some areas that I can get support and still leverage and bring out the best of what I can provide. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, go check out that last episode because I think there's a lot there. And the fifth question that we'll go into right now is, what does leadership look like when AI can do more of the work? I think this is very similar to the fourth question, and a lot of those things are also covered. But I do think there has to be a re-envisioning of what leadership looks like. I was on a call with some leaders, and someone talked about leadership looks different now. Sometimes it's requiring you to not just be sit on a seat on the bus and navigate from back there, but it requires you to be driving the bus. And that's going to be uncomfortable for some people. And, there have been reports that 80% of CEOs expect AI to require a moderate or significant overhaul of the organization's operational capabilities. Now, that's pretty big. That's not an upgrade. It's not a new feature. It's an overall overhaul of what the organization looks like. Maybe it helps to change some strategy. So, what you're coming in from a leadership perspective requires you to have more meaning behind what you're doing. Now you have to think about, how can this support me and the core values, my core values as a leader, how I want to show up as a leader, as well as how am I supporting what the organization is doing? How am I leveraging AI, and where does my leadership matter in that case? Where you come in is you get to interpret the ambiguity. You get to create meaning around things. You get to build the trust. You get to see the person that's affected by decisions, and you get to build some of that. So as a leader, it's not going away, but your value is not so much in knowing how to do the thing or know the thing. It's how are you pulling together people? How are you leveraging your influence? And how are you becoming more capable being supported by the technology? So what are leaders really asking AI right now? Are we moving fast enough? What are we getting from all of this investment? Who's accountable? What will happen to our people? And what is leadership becoming? I think beneath those questions is something that's a little bit more personal. What kind of leader do I need to become right now? Where am I headed in my leadership? AI can certainly help you explore those questions, and there's lots of frameworks out there. And you can actually even use it to suggest some competencies that you can build and figure out where some of your gaps are. But it's not for you to think about being simply replaced by AI, but where you can create a development plan for yourself, because it cannot become that leader for you. It still requires you to be there for your team, for your people. We're going to dig into more of these conversations later. You're not the only one that has these questions, but give it some time and tell me, what are some of the things you're thinking about? What questions are you asking AI from your leadership perspective? Drop it in the chat, send me a note, and I'll see you next time.